Our next presenter is Molly Jones from North Carolina State University.
Hey, can everybody hear me? Okay. So my name is Molly Jones. I'm a second-year veterinary student at North Carolina State University, and today I'm going to talk about a project I did this summer that discussed improvements in piglet thermoregulation with higher iron doses. So to provide some background for this project, we know it's standard practice to supplement pigs with iron within the first 7 or so days of life to prevent iron deficiency anemia. This is crucial due to the fact that piglets' rapid growth during the suckling phase requires levels of iron that is not otherwise provided directly from the sow's milk. In the body, iron is necessary for oxygen transport and respiration, among many other important functions. And recent research has shown that there are many benefits provided to both the pig and the producer when 200 milligram doses of iron are given, as opposed to the once standard single 200 milligram dose. These include increased average daily gain and feed efficiency, resulting in pigs that are 7 pounds heavier at marketing. When pigs are given a single 200 milligram dose, most end up weaning now with a hemoglobin concentration of less than 110 grams per liter, which, as you can see on the scale, puts them in the suboptimal or anemic range. One study showed that iron dose significantly impacts the expression of many genes of interest in pigs at weaning, one of these being the gene that encodes for the TRPV1 receptor. This showed a 4-fold increase in TRPV1 expression in pigs that did receive that second 200 milligram dose of iron. TRPV1 stands for transient receptor potential vanilloid 1, sometimes referred to as the capsaicin receptor. TRPV1 is a cation channel that's known to be involved in core body temperature regulation and is a polymodal integrator of nociception or perception of pain. It can be found in the central nervous system, in visceral organs, and the skin, and its primary activators include heat, capsaicin, which is a compound found in hot peppers, and low pH. So knowing that TRPV1 is upregulated in the pigs that receive 200 milligram doses of iron, and that it is involved in core body temperature regulation, the primary objective of this project was to evaluate the relationship between injectable iron dose and piglets' ability to regulate their body temperature during the peri-weaning period. The study was conducted on a 4,500 head commercial sow farm in Nebraska. This was a PRRS positive farm that had undergone an LVI about 26 weeks prior, but we did confirm that there was PRRS still circulating downstream in this flow. 30 gilts were initially enrolled in this project, but only 16 remained enrolled to the point of temperature data collection, which I will touch on later. Gilts were enrolled at birth or within 24 hours of birth and evenly allotted to the control and treatment group, and they were tagged, weighed, and their hemoglobin concentrations were measured at enrollment. We used a novel method to record these temperature readings using these thermochron data loggers. These required no repeated handling of the piglets during the data collection period, and they were fixed to the piglets and programmed to record a temperature every 5 minutes throughout about our 6-day period. We were able to record 1,621 temperature readings per piglet. Just to show a general timeline of our project, on day 3, all pigs received their initial iron dose. On day 6, the treatment group received their second iron dose. And then at the end of the suckling phase, 1 day prior to weaning, the data loggers were placed, and 5 days after weaning, they were removed. For iron, we used Uniferon 200 iron dextran product, and we used this Pulse 250 needle-free system for administration. To apply the loggers, we first anesthetized the pigs with an intramuscular TKX injection, which is a mixture of teledimine, zolazepam, ketamine, and xylazine. We wanted to place the loggers in the axillary region, and so the skin was shaved and cleaned with a surgical scrub. This shows the general size of the loggers in relation to the size of the wean pig, as well as the general placement of them. They were first attached with an adhesive medical patch, and then 8 to 9 cruciate sutures were placed circumferentially around the patch. On the right, you can see what the final product looked like on our pigs. Before determining that we did need to use sutures to carry out this project, we did test several other methods. We tested 3 with only the adhesive medical patch, 3 with the patch and surgical glue, 1 with sutures and surgical glue, and 3 with sutures, testing 3 different suture patterns. We used nickels for this to mimic the size and shape of the real data loggers, as they were about $50 each, so this was a much more cost-effective option. By day 4, all of the patches with sutures were present, but only 1 was remaining from the alternative methods. By day 7, all of the sutures were still present, but none remained from the alternative methods. So from here, we decided it was necessary to move forward with sutures, and we chose the cruciate pattern. And as I mentioned before, we did start with 30 pigs in the trial and finished with 16. So even though we tested these methods prior to actual data collection, we did end up losing the remaining loggers at some point during the period. But for a pilot study, we were happy to finish with those 16. At the end of the data collection period, we removed the patches and the sutures to collect the data loggers, and at this point they could be plugged into a computer to export the data. This shows the high, low, and set point temperatures in the nursery for those first couple days that the pigs were in there, and these are realistic and not out of the ordinary for summertime in Nebraska. And this graph shows the average temperatures of both the treatment and control groups throughout our entire data collection period. The dashed line across the middle of the graph represents what would be the expected normal body temperature of the piglets at 101.5 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can see the blue lines falling down. There are consistent daily patterns where the control pigs fall below the temperature of the treatment pigs, especially overnight. And for the average of the entire data collection period, the treatment pigs averaged 0.5 degrees higher than the control pigs, but the p-value was just 0.12. But it is possible that with a larger sample size, this difference might have been significant. And I would also like to point out this spike post-placement that lasted for 10 hours. And this slide describes the events of weaning as well as zooms in on that spike post-placement. Treatment from the sow farm took just under 40 minutes, and the weather was mild at this time. It was 74 degrees and cloudy outside. And the most noticeable changes from this day are definitely seen in that spike post-placement. So the control pigs had a higher average just during this time period and maximum temperature, but they had a lower minimum temperature than the treatment pigs, showing greater variability. And aside from the two differences of the treatment groups for this time period, I think this provides a lot of valuable insight for us to the level of fever and stress that wean pigs experience during that first day in the nursery. So the most drastic changes aren't seen during weaning, transport, placement, but for the entire remainder of that day. Like, this was a 10-hour period after the pigs had been placed. And this shows the general distribution of body temperatures throughout that entire data collection period. You can see the treatment pigs are a lot higher concentrated at that expected normal body temperature of 101.5, and they're over a more narrow range of temperatures. So simply put, they were better able to avoid the major temperature swings on either end of the curve, whereas the control pigs are less concentrated at that normal body temperature and are spread over a wider range. So what does this mean for our wean pigs? Pigs that receive 200 milligram doses of iron endure less thermal stress on the day of weaning compared to those that just receive 200 milligrams, and they can better thermoregulate while they are adjusting to the nursery environment, and they expend less energy on regulating body temperature and more on growth. For future directions, I think it would be beneficial to replicate this project in the wintertime, because one of the most noticeable differences from our project was that the control pigs consistently fell into lower temperatures than the treatment pigs. So it would be interesting to see if this is exaggerated in a colder climate, because this was the middle of July in Nebraska, nowhere near cold. And a lot of wean pigs from North Carolina actually moved to the Midwest for their nursery and finisher phases. And so I think it would be interesting to see if the level of thermal stress is affected by a long transport time, an extremely long transport time at that, at maybe very high or very low temperatures compared to those with a short transport time like the ones in this project. And it would be interesting to see if you could compare the level of thermal stress endured from that transport time with the level of performance as the pigs age and move through that nursery phase. And moving forward, we would need to test more reliable attachment methods for the data loggers. As you know, we lost a good chunk of ours, but for a pilot study, we were happy with it. And I would like to thank Dr. Tom Petznick and Dr. Emily Pratt for helping me complete this project, and for Pharmacosmos for sponsoring me this summer, especially Dr. Wesley Lyons and Dr. Chris Olson. And I would also like to thank Ronfelt Farms for letting me complete this project with them, specifically Tavis Christensen and Sam Stutzman. So I'd like to open the floor to any questions.
I really like the presentation and your objectives. But I wondered, did you block for piglet weight?
All of the pigs were within a similar weight. The average weight of the control pigs was actually 0.3 pounds higher at birth, and then within weaning they were 0.3 pounds lighter than the treatment pigs. So they weren't blocked specifically by weight, but I did make sure they were blocked in litter mate pairs. I made sure to pick litter mates that were equal sizes.
Really nice presentation and nice study design as well. I'm just curious, since you're measuring surface temperature, did you note anecdotally any differences in your treatment group's use of the heating lamps or pads that may have influenced the temperatures that you're seeing?
Potentially in the south farm, yes, but the nursery did not have any heat lamps or heated pads or anything, and that's where the majority of our data collection occurred, and definitely not on the trailer. So we didn't account for any of that. We didn't think it would have had any large effects on our findings. So thank you for the question.
Very good presentation. Do you see some relation between the hemoglobin levels and the weight of the piglets? And if we, I don't know, if it's able to work in a prediction between the necessity of the, I don't know, of the iron in piglets, because for that relation between the hemoglobin levels and the weight,
So you're
working in that?
asking about the direct relationship between hemoglobin and weight?
Yes.
Yeah, so the hemoglobin of the treatment pigs was higher, and as I said in previous studies, it's been shown that the pigs that receive 200 milligram doses of iron are heavier and grow better. And so I do think that this could potentially provide some background as to why they grow better maybe. They're better set up for success going into the nursery phase. And yeah, they did still wean with a higher hemoglobin, and they were just a tad heavier. So that is, I guess, the typical trend that I saw throughout the project I did this summer. Does that answer your question? Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Molly.